All right, I got my guy Udo Erasmus on the show today. He is a best-selling author. He is an oil expert, not just any oils. We're going to talk about seed oils versus saturated fat oils versus whatever oil you can think of. And he's got a background in genetics, biology, so much more. Udo, welcome to the show, brother.
Well, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you. This has been a long time coming. Really excited that our schedule is connected and we were able to make this happen. Man, you have got a fascinating story about how you came about into this world. I mean, you're actually the founder, the first person to create flaxseed oil. And I first discovered flaxseed oil probably 10 years ago or so. And I remember there was, this was the time I was living in San Francisco and veganism was very popular. And there was a guy I was following. He was an athlete, a bicycle athlete. And he went like completely vegan, felt very good. And one of the things he did was this special smoothie that with flaxseed oil. First time I ever heard of it. And so that was, my like introduction to it. And now I'm here. You and I were talking offline. Now I'm hearing all this stuff a lot in the news about seed oils. And we were talking about Dr. Catherine Shanahan, who wrote Dark Calories and another book. I think it's called Good Nutrition. And just demonizing seed oil. So you don't want, not a single freaking seed oil do you want. Canola oil, sunflower seed oil. They're rampant in all of our products because I think they're more shelf stable, but they oxidize. And so her whole thing is you don't want them in your food. Nonetheless, man, I'm excited to talk to you and kind of clear the air on these things because I only know so much, from what we hear on social media. So it's going to be really nice to talk to an expert like yourself. But before we jump into seed oils and all that, tell everybody just kind of your story and how you got here, which led to the creation of your oil products, specifically the flaxseed oil, and just how you kind of came about that.
Yeah. Well, the long story is I was born during the Second World War, 1942. I'm 82. And we were in Poland, which was part of Germany at the time. My parents were from Latvia and Estonia. And by the war ended when I was 2, so we were refugees fleeing out of Poland with the communists chasing us in tanks and trucks on dirt roads in horse-drawn hay wagons, mothers with young children. The men were all off at war or dead or in prisoner war camps. And the Allies, which we like to think of as the good guys, were using us as target practice, shooting at us from planes on these dirt roads with no military presence. And so we're getting it from the back and the front and the top, right? And my mother decided it was safer to go through the snow-covered fields in winter than to stay on the roads because there were dead horses and dead people in the ditches. She had 6 kids with her. She couldn't handle 6 kids walking through the fields. So she had to leave 4 kids behind. Imagine a mother having to make that kind of a decision.
Wow.
I got left behind. So I ended up being a refugee. Then I ended up being an orphan. And eventually her sister found out what happened and she found us and reunited us with the family. I don't remember much other than I was always like this, always like very shy. Never felt safe, didn't know what I could trust. And we basically, I look back at it now and I say, what an incredible gift that was.
Yeah,
because
seriously.
It stripped everything. We lost
How old were you again, Udo?
2.
2, wow.
2.5, right? So we lost the country, we lost the culture, we lost the community, we lost the farm, we lost the house, we lost the cattle, the fields. We lost everything except the clothes we wore, the bodies we were in, and the life in those bodies. Everything else got taken away. I say it's a gift because I started from scratch. I didn't have a culture to fall back on. I didn't live in a place where you could believe what people said, because a lot of it is BS anyway. But it wasn't even consistent because every day you heard a different story. And so I had to start from scratch, born scientist, because of that, because I was always trying to figure out how things worked, because when you know how things work, it gives you a certain amount of security, right? Science is about predict and control. So I was always trying to figure out how things work. I broke a lot of stuff when I was a kid, trying to do my experiments, got punished quite a bit. But when it comes to getting getting educated, I was always into science because I wanted to know everything about everything. And when I was 6 years old, and that's really, I think, where my mission began, we were in Germany. The adults were arguing about really stupid things, I thought, as a 6-year-old, like trivial, but they really get into it. And it was so intense.
Even right now, we see the same thing, right?
Well, yeah, it's true. But for me, that specific one was...
You remember it, yeah.
Yeah, 6 years old. It made me feel really uncomfortable because tension was... I used to shake when there was tension in the room. That's how sensitive I was. And I thought it was trivial. And I thought, man, there must be a way that people can live in harmony. And this little cocky voice in my head said, I'm going to find out how. 6 years old, didn't know how complicated everything is. Yeah, I'm just going to find out how, right? And so that's been my driver all my life. Because when you come out of a war, you're like at the bottom of the barrel, right? So, there must be a better way to live. And frankly, you could look at all 8 billion people on the planet, including me and yourself and everybody who's listening or watching, right? Every one of us could live better than we do. Put up with so much garbage. We live garbage. We have garbaged our cultures. We have garbaged our constitutions. We have garbaged our relationships. We have garbaged our food. We've garbaged, what haven't we garbaged? We've garbaged nature. What haven't we garbaged? And of course, when you garbage everything, then you end up living in garbage, right? So my question was always, I went into biological science. Biology means study of life. I wanted to know what life is. I thought we would have a beaker at one point. It would be filled with something liquid and shining, and we'd be saying, there's life. Now I know what life is. I wanted to know life like that. You don't study life in biology. You study form and function. Never got to life. I went into psychology. Psychology is study of soul. Thought soul, that must be important somehow because you hear a lot about it. But I want to know what it is. I just don't want just words about it. I want to know what it is. Well, you don't study you study soul in psychology. You study beliefs, thoughts, emotions. I went into medicine because we call it healthcare. And I wanted to know what health is because I thought, if somebody's departed from health in some direction, I should be able to turn them around in the direction of health, give them a push and get them better, watch them get better. But I have to know in what direction to push him. I have to know what health is. We didn't study health. I went to the dean. I said, I'm here to study health. What is health? He said, we don't know. We're working on it. And they're not even working on it because they only study disease. So I went back into biological sciences, biochemistry, genetics, because in biology, you study normal creatures in normal situations functioning normally. Well, that's got to be somewhere closer to health than studying disease. So I ended up there, but there was still something missing, and I left. And then I went through psychedelics. That kind of opened the door to my very shy personality, and I realized how many options I have. That never occurred to me until then. And then I got into the scriptural stuff, Socrates and New Testament and Buddhism and Hinduism, and really what did the really wise people on this planet say? And I found out that they're the teachers of human nature. Nobody teaches human nature except the really wise ones. Mm-hmm. And so I got into that, and I had some very profound, powerful experiences, and eventually got into stillness practice. Because if you want to know who you are, how the hell are you going to learn who you are if you never spend time with yourself? So how do you spend time with yourself? Well, wherever your focus goes, that's where your knowledge comes from, right? Because you're observing. Well, how about you take time, you sit still, you shut up, you distract yourself from all your distractions, like put them aside and sit with yourself as quiet as you can. And literally, so how quiet can I become? And how deep can I go into that quiet? And how long can I stay there? And how lightly and evenly and calmly can I breathe? And if I spend time that way, what is there to see, to hear, to feel, to taste? What is there? What do I discover in that space, in that quiet space? And what you discover, it's called self-knowledge. You discover yourself. And you discover that the core of your existence, the foundation of your existence, is all-encompassing peace. And that's where you come from. That's your universal essence. And that's where the entire universe comes from. There is a peace that is centered in your being, but that radiates out from there, not limited to your body, goes out to infinity. And every point in space is a point of peace that goes infinite. So we live within infinite peace. It's everywhere. But you only notice it when you feel the peace in the core of your being. That's your access point to a peace that is already everywhere. But when you don't have that access point, you don't see the peace. Then you see enemies, or you see danger, or you see something, or you make shit up, right? And then you run your life. If you see enemies, then you'll create them if there aren't any, just by your mindset, right? And then you're going to live like into the world like it was filled with enemies. And then you fight with everything, right? Or you run away from everything, right? Or if you're afraid, then you create a world full of danger, and then you hide, and, you're always ducking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're doing it to yourself by where your focus is with yourself, your mindset. But if you're in peace, you see peace everywhere. And then it's like, okay, well, this is a peaceful world. How cool. What can I put into peace that maintains or builds it? And then you start to feel in peace, and you feel content, and you feel cared for, because your internal essence, your individual essence in that peace is actually unconditional love. Life is unconditional love for your body. So you want to feel loved? Don't go out there looking for it. Go in here. It's already there. And it's unconditional. It's unconditional, empowering love. That's your individual essence. 8 billion people, that's their individual essence. So here you have like the most incredible things you always looking for, and you already have them, and you're looking everywhere except where they are for you, because for you they're inside. So I got into that, and it's like, wow, what a nice foundation to live from.
Yeah.
Oh my God, And then it's like, okay, I feel so cared for. What's left to do? Well, actually, there's nothing left to do for me, because I'm taken care of. It's not about me anymore. Okay, where can I help? What needs to be done? How can I make the biggest splash for good that I can make in the time I have on earth? Then I got married, and the marriage broke up, and then I was upset because I was not really deeply into that yet, but I had started, right?
Now, when you got prior to the divorce, sorry for cutting out, but prior to the divorce, you had started this stillness practice. It had already.
I started it in 1972. I met a kid who was 14 years old. He said, "The peace you search for in the world is within you, and I can show you how to get to that." He was 14. I was 30. I didn't think he could do it, because it's like, what's a 14-year-old going to teach me, right? I'm 30. Yeah. I've been around. But, peace was important because I came out of a war. So I thought, well, let me just check it out just in case he can. I wouldn't want to miss it. And if he can't, I'll just keep looking.
Yeah.
So it's all very iffy. So then I learned to practice. And the practice was I wanted to be fully present in all of my being on a moment-to-moment basis. And that's a job, because your senses will always take you out, because you've got to deal with change on the outside. So it's always going to take you out. So you have to bring it back deliberately. And for that, you need to take time every day. I mean, this is my recommendation.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, how often, how long do you try to do it?
Hour.
Oh, wow.
I do it in bed before I get out of bed. So if I have something I need to do at 8 o'clock, I'll get up at 6, spend an hour just getting present, because first of all, I want to feel it, and then I want to drag it into the world with me. And so why not start your day like that, if that's what you're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
So I do it in the morning. Sometimes I do it in the evening, occasionally, because I'm older now. I'm 82, so I have time off sometimes. So I'll do a little practice, self-knowledge, we call it, in the afternoon too. And it feels so good. It's like doing nothing feels better than anything else.
So funny you say that. I had a practitioner I was working with just the other day. She was taking me through this. It was essentially like a stillness meditation,
Yeah,
essentially, is what she was doing. And she goes, "How do you feel?" I said, "Really good, like
yeah,
so good." Like,
yeah,
and it was so simple, Udo. She didn't do anything special. She was just guiding me to following my breath and just feeling my body with my eyes closed and just imagining.
yeah,
And I just realized how disconnected I am and
yeah.
how, like you said,
But
go,
not
go, go.
imagining. Not imagining. You don't want to imagine anything. You just want to notice what's there.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Yeah,
I noticed. I
yeah,
noticed how disconnected I was
yeah,
and am, and how my
yeah.
racing mind is going. And it's interesting because when I took my son on a 5-day father son camping trip, uh, and it was led by this well known guy who does like these kind of like rites of passage and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And we would every day on our trip we would do a 20-minute sit spot is what it was called, and we would just go into nature and just be.
Hmm.
And there's nothing there, you're just watching and just being. But to your point, just sitting there doing nothing, it was
Yeah,
so good. I didn't realize how powerful nature could be to bring you back into presence.
yeah,
And we're so disconnected, like you were talking about, from that nature.
yeah.
And it's already there, it's
Well,
right
we're
there,
yeah.
and we
Well,
miss it.
we're addicted to doing,
Yeah.
and we're supposed to be human beings. So the question you could ask is, well, is being or doing more important? Well, think about it. You can be without doing, but you can't do without being. So if you're not spending time being, which is your foundation, then you're actually living without foundation. And when you live without foundation, everything goes crazy,
Yeah.
right? And that's why things are so crazy, because we're not living from our foundation. Most people are not living from their foundation.
No.
So, anyways, there's a book. There's a book that if you're interested in reading, it's called "Hear Yourself." Hear yourself. How to find peace in a noisy world.
Oh, that's great. I'll
It's
have
a
to check
cool
it
book.
out.
Yeah, it's a cool book. And it's written by the guy who showed me the practice that I've been doing now for 52 years.
That was the 14-year-old kid?
That was the 14-year-old kid. He's going to be
Wow.
66 in December.
Unbelievable.
And he's been around the world. His commitment, unbelievable. Keeps it simple, nothing fancy, not building an empire, doesn't charge for the technique. Some people charge for techniques.
Yeah.
And it was basically his mission in his life is to take it as far as he can around the world.
Yeah.
And
It's so,
he says, look, I'm not that important, but my message is important. The
yeah.
message is important. What is that? The message is that peace, you can live in peace and love. Now, the way I explain it, by the way, is not how he talks about it. He has a completely way different talking. So he doesn't give you like a whole thing that you need to memorize and repeat. I'm talking from my own experience. He showed me a way to make it easier for my focus to get present inside. So anyway, so then I got poisoned by pesticides. I took a job as a pesticide sprayer because I was upset and I wanted to kill something, and that's what pesticides are for. And I took a job as a pesticide sprayer. And after 3 years of being really careless, really, what do they call that? Young men do stupid things because they're poisoned by their own testosterone,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah, you'd have to say that was true for me.
Oh, yeah.
And I got poisoned. And I went to a doctor and said, so what do you have for pesticide poisoning? She said, nothing. And that was the day, I always knew that health was my responsibility, but I kind of really got it. Oh my God, my health is my responsibility. And because I had the background, I started going into the journals, into the science, into the research, and looking at how to get healthy. And I looked at everything that had to do with nutrition and health and nutrition and disease. And there were like 16 million citations. 300,000 of them were on foods, 60,000 were on fats, probably 6,000 were on essential fatty acids. And I got stuck in fats because the information was really contradictory. So, for instance, there was one study I read. It said omega-6 is an essential nutrient. You have to have it to live and be healthy. That's what essential means. Essential for a nutrient. There are 42 essential nutrients. And these are nutrients that you can't make from anything else in your body. You have to have them to live and be healthy. So you got to bring them in from outside, food or supplement. If you don't get enough, your health goes down. If you don't get enough long enough, you die. That's how important they are. These are the essential building blocks for body construction and body function. Okay. But if your health is going down because you're not getting enough, but you bring enough back into the diet before you die, then all of the problems that come from not getting enough are reversed, because life knows how to make the body work, provided you take responsibility of bringing in all the building blocks. You want optimum health, you got to bring them in optimum quantities. You want to, if you're happy with just minimal health, well, then just bring them in minimal quantities, right? And so that was the one study. It says you got to, omega-6 is essential and you got to have it. And the very next study I read says omega-6 gives you cancer and kills you. And I'm going, boom, right? Like, how, yeah, I have to have it so it can kill me. It's like,
I've read the same study, so I can't wait, because one study I hear, like, almonds are good for you, linoleic acid, omega-6 is good for you.
Yeah.
Evening primrose, it's an omega-6. It can be good for you, women and their hormones.
Yeah.
Next study I read, omega-6 is the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. If it's not a 3-to-1, you're unhealthy, you're gonna die.
Yeah. So it's crazy. So, but because I had been poisoned by pesticides, and I needed honest answers, and I had cancer to look forward to, because about 60% of the pesticides that we spray are carcinogenic, cause cancer. They kill bugs and weeds, and they kill us by cancer, right? And we don't have anything. Like, we spray them everywhere, and we don't have an antidote. So what kind of freedom is that, where there's no responsibility, right? So, so I started looking into oils because of this contradiction. And I said, wait, I'm assuming both of these guys are not lying, right? This is what they came up with, and this is what they came up with. And I started thinking, well, how can it be? There must be something else going on that I'm not getting. And so it made me look deeper. And I started looking at how oils are made by industry. And the way that goes is that oils, omega-3 and omega-6, which are the two essential fatty acids that come from oils, from fats, right, are the most sensitive of all of our essential nutrients. They're damaged by light, by oxygen, and by heat. They need the most care of any of our nutrients so that they won't get damaged and become toxic. But we actually give them the least care. We don't throw any other food into the frying pan and watch it turn into smoke, right? And if you turn oil into smoke, you've changed the chemistry, you've changed the molecules, and smoke we know is carcinogenic, right? Okay, so I'm looking at this and say, wait, okay, so how does the industry make oils? Well, the industry was always interested in shelf life, because then they could make them where you are in Iowa, in Idaho.
The other eye.
Yeah, and you could sell them in Tokyo, and you could sell them in Johannesburg, and you could sell them in Berlin, and you could sell them in Moscow, and you could sell them in Beijing.
Yeah.
And Canberra. Right?
Don't forget Canberra.
Anyway, don't forget Canberra. Anyway, you have a big market. Well, that's nice. But in order to do that, they have to treat these very sensitive oils with sodium hydroxide, which is a very corrosive base, then with phosphoric acid, which is a very corrosive acid. Then they bleach it with bleaching clays, because the color molecules in oils absorb light, and light then damages the molecules. So they have to get those out. But when they bleach it, it goes rancid. Now it stinks. So they have to deodorize it. I used to call it destinkerize it, right? Now they have to deodorize it. And to deodorize the oil, you have to heat it to frying temperature for about half an hour to basically blow off the rancid molecules. And then you end up with a colorless, odorless, tasteless oil. Then you flip it into plastic bottles. They're transparent, so light goes in and damages the oil. Plastic leaches into oil, because oils swell plastics. They don't swell glass, but they swell plastics, and then junk in the plastic, because there's more than just plastic in plastic, right? Then that leaches into the oil. And you get pesticides in the oil because they don't use organically grown seeds. So you got pesticides in your oil. Well, I didn't know that. But what I found out by reading the research in a journal, I think it was called Lipids, it said when oils are made the way the industry makes them, comes out of their own research, then about 0.5 to 1% of the molecules are damaged by this processing. And I thought, well, hell, we shouldn't be doing that. It doesn't sound like a good idea. And so I called a researcher at the American Oil Chemist Society and said to him, well, when you know this does damage, because it's in your literature, why do you do this? And he said, well, one of the reasons we do that is because we can get rid of half of the pesticides in the oil. And at that point, I didn't even know there were pesticides in oil. And I've been poisoned by pesticides. So this was not a good answer for me in my head. And said, what, you mean the other half stays in? But I didn't say that to him. So I said to him, well, why don't you start with organically grown seeds? Then you don't have a pesticide poison to deal with. And there was this long silence at the other end of the phone. And I waited. Maybe it was only 3 seconds, but it seemed like a really long time, right? And when he got back to me, he was really angry. He says, what the hell is your problem? The oil is only 1% damaged and it's 99% good. And if you got 99% on an exam, you'd be damn happy, wouldn't you? So now I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm overreacting. It's only 1%. But by the way, I used to get 100% on some of my genetics exams. So the 99% didn't. Even on my pesticide sprayers qualification exam, I got 99.5%. So I wasn't impressed with the 99% like he was. But
well,
anyway,
it's a good point too, right? A lot of people will say it's the dose that makes the poison. So
yeah.
He's giving you that answer of, hey, it's just 1%, buddy. Big deal. The dose makes the poison. That's what he's telling you.
Right. So we have a saying, when in doubt, do the math. So I decided, let me do the math, because I don't know, maybe 1% is not much. So I asked the question, if you have a tablespoon of an oil that is 1% damaged by the processing, how many damaged molecules will you find in that tablespoon?
No idea. No idea.
Just give me a number.
It's got to be, okay, I'll give you a number. I don't know, 10,000 parts per million or something. Because that's probably how.
No, we're not doing parts per million. Just give me a number of molecules in that tablespoon.
Okay, 10,000.
10,000. Okay. So 10,000 has 4 zeros, right? Would you like to know the actual number?
Absolutely.
It's a 6 followed by 19 zeros.
Oh my God.
And what that means is that you are not 1,000,000 times too low in your estimate, not 1,000,000,000 times too low in your estimate. You're 1,000,000,000,000 times too low in your estimate. Actually, even more than that, you're 1,000,000,000,000 times too low in your estimate. And why is that important? Well, if you were to get on a plane to go home for the holidays, and you're about to get on the plane, and somebody who only tells the truth tapped you on the shoulder and says, by the way, did you know that your chance of crashing and dying on this flight home is 6 quadrillion times higher than you thought it was? Would you get on the airplane? I was in Ireland. I told him I would canoe back to Canada.
Yeah, this reminds me of a slogan we've heard the last 3 years. It's 95% safe and effective, and they were looking at relative risk, I think, instead of absolute. They'll play number games like that, right? And so you don't know, but yeah.
But the thing is that if you have 60 quintillion damaged molecules in a tablespoon of oil that is made the way industry makes oils, the colorless, odorless, tasteless oils that are everywhere, you have more than 1,000,000 damaged molecules for every one of your body's 60 trillion cells. Now, do you think that's not going to have an effect? These are all molecules that never existed in nature. Life never made a program to break them down. So then they're going to get in your body. Wherever they go, they're going to interfere with what's supposed to be going on there, because they're not the natural molecules. They're the wrong molecules. And that's not going to affect you. And then you do that. You don't do 1 tablespoon a day. Most people do 2 to 4. So you got to multiply it by 2 to 4. Then you got pesticides. Then you got plastics. Then you use it for frying. And when you fry the oil, you probably 3 to 6 times that number. So you got to multiply that number by 3 to 6 times. And then you do that for 30 years every day. And so you got to multiply that number by another 11,000, which is about the number of days in 30 years. And you look at the number of damaged molecules that don't exist in nature, that don't belong in your body, and look at what you've piled into your body, thinking it's a quadrillion times safer than you thought it was. So fundamentally what you're doing is you're doing something to yourself that is 6 quadrillion times worse than you think it is. And nobody talks about it. And nobody talks about it.
Yeah, I think, and Catherine Shanahan, we were talking about her before, and she's been raising the flag on seed oils. I know you have a slightly different perspective, but to her point, to what you're talking about, in her latest book I was reading, she said, like, the seed, like you just said, was never meant to be cracked open. Like, that's why it has the hard outer shell, right? And the processing and deodorizing and all this stuff, she thinks it's worse than even smoking. Right. Yeah. And there's like some studies to actually highlight that. But so, to your point, I think.
Yeah. So Shanahan and a whole bunch of people who are writing books saying seed oils are bad. You shouldn't use seed oils. Omega-6s are bad. You shouldn't use omega-6s. All of these people are quoting research that is being done on these damaged oils that have in a tablespoon 60 quintillion damaged molecules.
Yeah.
But what they're doing, and because they haven't looked deeper like I had to, they haven't done all their homework. Because if you look deeper, then you realize what they're blaming on seed oils and omega-6s should be blamed on the damage done to them by processing,
right,
or by frying. So now what they're doing is they're blaming an essential nutrient that every cell in your body requires, omega-6 and omega-3. They're blaming omega for what they should be blaming on the damage done to them. They should blame that damage on processing.
Yeah.
And when I found out all of this stuff, and then I found out omega-3 is essential. That was established in 1981, the year after I got poisoned. So omega-3 and omega-6 are both essential. 99% of the population doesn't get enough omega-3s for optimum health. It is the single most widespread essential nutrient deficiency of our time. And so I look at all of this and I say, wait, we need to bring back omega-3s so that we raise our intake to whatever would be optimum. And omega-3s are 5 times more sensitive to damage than omega-6s. They need to be treated with a lot of care. And we need to get rid of the omega-6s that are damaged and replace them with omega-6s made with health in mind. And we need to balance the ratio of omega-3 and omega-6 because they use the same mechanisms in our cells, the same enzymes, to be converted into dozens of other important molecules that have regulatory hormone-like functions in every cell. And we need to have the ratio right because if you get too much of one, it'll crowd out the other. And if you get too much of the other, it'll crowd out the one. So the balance between them has to be right. Now, what have we done? We have doubled or maybe tripled or maybe even 10 times or 20 times our omega-6 intake. And we have decreased our omega-3 intake to 1/6 of what people got in 1850. So we got 3 issues. One is not enough omega-3. Second is damaged omega-6. And third is wrong ratio. So I said, okay, first thing, let's bring back the missing omega-3s. And I got so inspired when I found out 99% doesn't get enough omega-3. Like, oh my God, if we could make that with health in mind and we could bring it back, oh my God, we could help almost everybody. And you know what? There's something that feels really good in the heart when you help, and feels really bad when you hurt people. I just got so lit up. Oh my God, we could help almost everybody. I have a purpose. Oh my God, God gave me a purpose. You know, it's like, how did I come across all this? Oh my God, I got poisoned by pesticides. Thank God I got poisoned by pesticides because it led to that, right?
Totally.
And so then we developed flaxseed oil, which is the richest source in omega-3 that's naturally available. And we did tours. We were in a van without air conditioning in the hottest months in the U.S., 35 states, 17,000 miles, 101 days, 85 cities. And we told the story of flax oil. And in 2 years, flax oil became the second highest selling oil in the natural foods industry. And it was all done by, I had no business background. I had really good science background. But we created a business. We set standards. We wouldn't do business with people who didn't have refrigeration in their facility because our oils needed the care, and we would not work with people who wouldn't give it the care. I mean, it was amazing. And then after about 3 years, I became omega-6 deficient on flax oil because I used it as my only source of fat in the diet. I wanted to see what would happen. Mm-hmm. And within 3 months, I was omega-6 deficient. I got dry eyes, skipped heartbeats, arthritis-like pain in finger joints, and thin, papery skin. Classic omega-6 deficiency symptoms. Fixed them by eating sunflower
seeds. Too much omega-3, actually. You were in the rare camp of Americans that didn't have enough. You had more than enough omega-3.
Flax is the only oil that can actually make you omega-6 deficient because it's 4 times more omega-3 than omega-6. Most of the other oils, are high in omega-6, and they might make you functionally omega-3 deficient.
Gotcha.
So when I got this, I ate sunflower seeds, which only have omega-6s, brought the ratio back, all the symptoms disappeared, and I decided, oh my God, we need to make a blend where the ratio is right, because I'm trying to help people get healthy. If flax oil can make you sick, then I don't want to work with flax oil. I think we can do better than that. So then we made a blend. It's called Udo's oil, and it's got 9 ingredients, and it has a ratio twice as rich in omega-3 as omega-6 because we're so low in omega-3s. And we've been using that now since 1994. The people who write these books on how omega-6s are bad and seed oils are bad, and there's been probably close to 20 books like that in the time that I've been active in this field, which is like about 40 years. There's always somebody coming up with, I found the answer. Omega-6s are bad, seed oils are bad. Not a single one of the people who's written any of those books, including Ms. Shanahan, not a single one of those people has ever talked to me. And
we got to connect you too, because I'd love to have you guys talk.
And I did homework way back 40 years ago that they have never done. But they're taking it at face value. Here's what the research says, but all the research is done on damaged oils. And nobody talks about it. Even on TV, I was on a major TV station one time, had this interview, talked about all of this stuff. And they loved the interview. And it was inspiring, and we had fun, and it was a really good interview. They said, we're going to play it on the evening news. So I had the evening off. I said, okay, I'm going to watch myself on TV, because I usually don't get to do that, right? And, sometimes you see, pick my face, or I don't know what I do. So I might see something that I might want to work on to get a little better at what I do, right? Well, I watched this evening news. They didn't play it, but they played an ad for Wesson oil, which is one of those colorless, odorless, tasteless oils. Mm-hmm. So I know what happened. They loved it. They took it to the editor. The editor took it to the boss editor, and they said, we can't play that, because we make money from damaged oils, and we're not going to tell people that they're damaged oils.
Yep.
So that has never made the news, that there are 60 quintillion damaged molecules in a tablespoon of oil when it is 1% damaged by the processing. That has never made the news. And I've been at it for 40 years.
I want to ask you a couple questions about how your health radically changed. But before I do, I actually want to ask a couple questions just about the oils, because I'm really curious. Yeah. Is there, because you're saying, and I understand the difference, there's the oxidized damaged oils, correct? That is a huge problem. Stay away from those.
That's only one.
Then, what's that?
That's only one. Light damages them by free radical formation, oxygen by rancidity, and heat by twisting molecules and creating trans fatty acids.
Yeah, bingo. Okay.
And there's a whole bunch of other different ways that the oils get damaged in the processing.
Yeah. So if I'm a consumer though, and I'm just going to use an example, I go to Costco and I look at the chip aisle. I want to have some tortilla chips. If I look at them, I see typically organic expeller pressed canola oil or sunflower oil or grape seed oil.
Yeah.
I have been taught those are all bad. Now, is that true? Or as a consumer, how can I distinguish based on the labels that is not a rancid, toxic oil? Is there a way?
Okay. Yeah. One thing they leave out is they should be saying fried in organic expeller pressed oil. Well, when you fry, you do enormous damage by light, oxygen, and heat to whatever you're frying. So you add to that the worst thing we've ever invented to do to our food in as long as we've been on this planet is frying. We take the most sensitive nutrients, we treat them the harshest, we turn them into smoke. There's a study recently done that cooks who spend 8 hours in front of a frying pan in a restaurant doing cooking have 4 times more lung cancer than people who are normal who spend 2 hours in front of the frying pan cooking at home.
Yeah. Funny, Shanahan talks about that in her book and about how it stains the walls.
Oh, sure. You could, and you can smell it. I mean, you can smell the kitchen if you're doing that. Yeah. So frying is the dumbest thing we've ever invented to do to our health. And so I say to people, get your frying, if you want to be healthy, get your frying pan. Everybody has one. Turn it upside down, bonk your head on the side of the head with it. So it's associated with pain, and threw that stupid thing out, go back to cooking in water. Yes, you can water scramble your eggs. Yes, you can boil and soft boil your eggs. All the things you say, oh, but I have to fry. No, you don't. Even the stew, when we were kids, cooking meant in water. And the other thing was called frying and deep frying. Now, when we say cooking, we usually mean frying, right? So the word has even changed in meaning. And that's all through advertising. The industry wanted to sell more oil. Yeah. And one of the best way to sell more oils is to use oil for cooking. Of course. We're using water, right?
Yeah. So what about, go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was thinking, and this is different because you're using flax versus, we hear a lot about omega-3 fish oils. And from what I understand, at this point, I used to take fish oil. Now I never take it because from what I understand, I don't care what company's out there, they go rancid. So I just stopped taking it altogether and just try to get my omega-3s from food. Do you have the same issue when it comes to flax or some of the, I know like in Udo's oil, there's it's not just flax now, you've got like a rice oat bran and there's some other oils. Is there any issues with oxidation like the same way you see with fish oils?
Yes, but let me put it in perspective. If you have a saturated fat, those are the hard fats, and you say the chemical sensitivity of that is 1. Okay, this is just 1 watt. Just it's a 1. Okay. Yep. Then you compare that saturated fat to a monounsaturated fatty acid, right? So it's 18.0. This one's 18.1 omega-9. So that's what you find in olive oil. 80% of olive oil is that. Well, that's 2.5 times more sensitive to damage than the saturated. Then you take linoleic acid, which is the omega-6, 18 carbons, 2 double bonds. First double bond at carbon 6. That one is 2.5 times more sensitive to damage than the monounsaturated. Then you go to omega-3, alpha linolenic acid, 18.3 omega-3. First double bond starts at carbon 3. That one is 5 times more sensitive to damage than omega-6. And then you go to EPA and DHA in fish oil, which are 20 carbons and 5 and 6 double bonds. And those are 5 times more sensitive than alpha linolenic acid, the omega-3. So if you compare the saturated to the fish oil molecules or fatty acid molecules are 156 times more chemically sensitive to damage than the saturated fat, right? So So what you do is, if you get your fish oil in a bottle, in a glass bottle, not in capsules, but in a bottle, you put it in your fridge, you open up, in days, you can smell the rancidity because it's so unbelievably sensitive.
Yeah.
Right? Not only that, but the oil is made from garbage. It's like the fish dump. You get it from the fish dump, heads and tails and guts, and they have them sitting around and they go rancid in big tanks, and then they take them out, do a chemical feast on it, similar to what they do to the cooking oils.
Wow.
But if you have 1% damage in the cooking oil, in the omega-6 cooking oil, equivalent, you would be getting 25 times more damage in the fish oil by using the same process. So they tried to lower it down, but you may have 5% of the oil molecules may be damaged. Might be 10%. Depends on what they used, right? And so the research now, when you look at the research, now they did a couple of other things. They used to have PCBs and dioxins in fish oils, and they were up to as much as 1,300 parts per billion. Government said, that's too toxic, that's too much, you have to bring it down to 90 parts. Well, the scientists say 90 parts is too much too, because there's no safe level of this junk, right? But the government says 90%, so to bring that down, they have to do more processing, so they do more damage to the oil. And then, and so the fish oils used to, when they were fresh, or you eat the fish when the oceans weren't as polluted as they are now. Fish is now the dirtiest meat on the planet, right? When they were clean, they actually had benefits. But what we've done to them has pretty much neutralized all the benefits. So all of the studies that they're doing now, like when they do, what do you call them? They take a whole bunch of studies on a topic and then they put them all together.
Meta-analysis.
Yeah, when they do meta-analysis on it or review studies, right? They're saying that fish oils don't do for brain what they used to, or heart what they used to, or energy what they used to. So fundamentally, fish oils have become useless, even though the marketing still promotes them big time. And 1,000%. One of the big marketing issues is the fish oil industry. The week we came out with flaxseed oil in 1987, one of the fish oil companies says the body can't convert flax oil into fish oil. It's not true. It was never true. If you get enough of the starting material and you get the ratio right and they're not damaged, your body does, all its cells will do the conversion it needs to do for its own needs. Right?
Wow.
So, but they've always said, and that's marketing, that's not the research. And then they started doing studies to show that it doesn't convert, and they doctored the studies. Yeah. You can set up a study to show that it won't convert. If you give, all you got to do is get obese people who eat too many starches, too much sugar, too much saturated fats, too much omega-3s, all have a lot of omega-3s, omega-6s rather, not omega-3s. So they're going to be crowded out. If they're magnesium deficient, and about 80% of the population is, zinc deficient, 50 to 60% is, C deficient, 41%, B6 deficient, 80%, B3 deficient, 34%, right? And then you get people who maybe already are taking fish oil, right? And then you put them in a test to find out if alpha-linolenic acid is converted. No, there's not going to be any conversion. You already have that stuff. And it's not being converted because you set up the context. And nobody talks about the context, Of
course.
Oils are not alone in the body doing something, unrelated to anything else. No, they're part of a whole contextual story.
For sure.
You got to have the context right. And you can move the context, and that's how a very nice tool for research is being misused to get people the results they want to promote in their marketing. And they're cooking the stories. And researchers cook the stories sometimes because they get they get grants from the fish oil industry. They're not getting any grants from the flax oil industry because flax is expensive when it's organic and fish garbage is free. So they have more money to spend and they're a bigger industry. And so there's a lot going on and unless you immerse yourself like I had to do, or how I was led to do, right? If you don't immerse yourself and really get to the bottom of what's really going on, what is actually happening, what are people doing, what's going on in the industry, what are the drivers in that industry. If you don't do that, you're going to come up with the same kind of stuff that Knob and Shanahan, a bunch of other people have come up with when they say, seed oils are bad. Seed oils are good when they're made with health in mind.
Yeah.
Seed oils are bad when they're damaged by processing.
Yep.
And that's and so we basically created. I mean, my claim to fame is not flax oil, but creating a method for making oils with health in mind. And we had to make very, very tight systems so no light, no oxygen could get to it, and the temperature was always low. And that's how you make oils with health in mind. Then they go in glass because plastic leaches. They're brown glass bottles. Then we put a box around it so no light gets to the oil. They're refrigerated in the factory. They're refrigerated in the stores. You refrigerate them at home. And you never, ever, ever, ever want to use them for frying. You add them to foods after they come off the heat source. And then you end up with oils made with health in mind. I'm exhibit A for doing that. I use my own oil every day. And I'm 82. And you were talking about my progress. When I was 38, I had arthritis in my knees. No, it wasn't real serious yet, but whenever I bent my knees and put a little pressure on them, they hurt. I'm 82. I have no joint pain anywhere in my body. I have no pain. You know, I'm supposed to be an old guy. You know, I have nothing. All my markers, you know, I don't go to doctors very much because I think disease management is not where I'm trying to go. I'm trying to go to health. So live in line with nature and your nature. That takes a little bit of education. Fresh, whole, raw, organic. I eat mostly plant-based, mostly raw. Because nature's mandate for creatures that eat was fresh, whole, raw, organic, local. And for human beings, probably plant-based more than animal-based, although that wasn't true everywhere. Because there were some places where there was lots of meat, like in the buffalo herds and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But when the human beings the hunters had only rocks to hunt with, they came home without meat a lot because animals run away or fight. So when they came home without meat, guess what they ate? Vegetables. They don't run away. They don't fight back. They're easy to hunt down and kill. And so we were probably mostly not hunter-gatherers, but gatherer-hunters.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed.
And so you want to look at that, you know, that, and then there's lots of research now that says when you go more plant-based whole food, you have longer life and better health than when you add animal products to it. And part of that is because of how badly we treat the animals that we're making for food. So that's part of the problem. And I think that research hasn't really been done yet. What would it be like to be eating more animal-based products, but they're all in their natural condition, eating natural foods in a natural environment rather than in a feedlot where they're walking around in their feces and their urine eating corn all day, right?
Yeah.
So it's all very interesting. I have to say, at 82, I'm surprised that I have the energy I do. And I still do gardening and I still take trees down, and you know, I'm pretty good for an old guy.
Yeah.
And not still firing at least on 2 cylinders in my head as well.
That's good. I wanted to ask you, when it came to you being poisoned, and I know we're almost close to wrapping up here, but when it came to you being poisoned, how were the oils beneficial in your healing process? And what I'm thinking by that is, if I got poisoned by pesticides now, everything that I know, I'd be looking at probably supplementing with fulvic and humic complexes to help with that detox process.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't heard you mention that. It sounds like the oils were a big part of your healing process. And I'm guessing it just, like you mentioned earlier, it gave you the right input to the body and the body healed on its own. I'm not quite sure, but I'm wondering, number one is, how was your healing process? And then what have other people experienced that are on the 369 your blend that you have? Where any testimonials that just stand out?
Oh yeah, lots. So no, I actually was not using oils when I got poisoned in 1980. We didn't come out with the oil till 1986. So I didn't have it available to me. So what I did is I did some fasting. I started taking supplements. I did some sweating. I actually did quite a bit of sweating because you can sweat out things really well. And I started really paying attention to how I eat. So that was the first part of it. Since the oil came out, though, there have been people who have shown that you can sweat out oil-soluble toxins, and many of what's in the pesticides is oil-soluble. You can sweat out oil-soluble toxins by driving them out by taking more oil. And what happens is that water-soluble toxins come out of your body in the water part of your sweat, and oil-soluble toxins will come out of your body in the oil part of your sweat. And that was shown for Agent Orange, which is pesticides, oil-soluble. They took Vietnam veterans, put them in a sauna for 15 to 30 minutes every day for 3 to 6 months. They were able to measure the Agent Orange in their sweat, and they were able to monitor its decrease in the body. And when you have enough oil, when you optimize your oil intake, you can literally use oil to drive out the toxins out of your body. The second thing you can do is the lymphatic system. And I never learned this in my biology. And I'm surprised I've never seen it in a medical textbook. Inside
the lymphatic system, I love that you're talking about it, is so overlooked.
Inside your anus, there are crypts that are part of the lymphatic system. And the lymphatic system picks up toxins from your extremities. And the lymphatic system dumps into your vena cava, and then that goes right into your heart. And if it's picking up toxins, the thought occurred to me, is like, wait a minute. You're bringing this stuff from the outside of your body, which is almost on its way out of your body. You're bringing it into that system, and then you're dumping it in the middle of your body. And then you're spreading it around your whole system again. There must be there must be some exit mechanism for the lymphatic system. Well, it turns out the crypts inside the anus is where those oil-soluble toxins get dumped. Then when those crypts get filled, every time you have a bowel movement, you're taking some of the overflow of toxins out into the toilet. Perfect place to put those crypts is right before you poop out, right? Oh yeah, now there's where the lymphatic system plays an important role in detox. So what do? You can do oil enemas. And I did a few of those after I got poisoned. First one I did, what you do is you do a water enema, get rid of all the junk in your colon. And then you put in about 8 ounces of undamaged oil, because you don't want to do damaged oil, because that'll just hurt you more. And you swish it around and you do a retention enema. You hold it in there for 15 to 30 minutes if you can. And you swish it around so to get some movement in there so that you can wash out those crypts. Then you dump it. And the first enema I did, it smelled like all the chemicals I sprayed. And It was really intensely, disgustingly smelly. And then I did another one about a month later, and it was okay. Then I did one 5 years later, and it was okay, because I'm not spraying pesticides anymore, right? Yeah. And but so when somebody gets poisoned, this would be one of the first things I would recommend they do. Do oil enemas, especially if they're oil-soluble toxins.
Wow.
And so there's a second. So that's the second way. The third way would be oil pulling. Oil pulling is because whatever in your mouth shows up in your mouth that's oil soluble. You can swish that out. I don't know how effective it is, but it's more effective than doing nothing.
Yeah.
And so there's other ways to use oils for detox. That's very, very cool. And then what do people get? Number one, 76% of our surveys, they rant and rave how beautiful their skin is. If you take the right amount, we say about a tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day, mixed in food, intake spread out over the course of the day. So that'd be 2 to 4 tablespoons for most people. If you get enough, then they form a barrier in the skin against the loss of moisture, and your skin becomes soft, smooth, and velvety. Then you don't need gunk on the outside. If you have dry skin, you're not getting enough of the right kind of oil. It's that simple. You notice it more in winter. You need more oil in winter than in summer, and you notice it more in deserts where it's dry. But you can notice it in humid places as well. And so we measure optimum by whether your skin is dry or whether it's soft, smooth, and velvety. And that's about a tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day. More or less, depending, because that depends on your metabolic rate a little bit as well.
Yeah.
And then the omega-3s lower most of the cardiovascular risk factors, but they have to be omega-3s that aren't damaged by processing, right? They're anti-inflammatory. I've noticed that, when you get cytokine storm in your lungs, that those cytokines are made from omega-6 fatty acids, and omega-3s inhibit the production of the omega-6 cytokine storm. So they're helpful in that regard. What else? They keep bones stronger because they inhibit the bone breakdown cells. They're called osteoclasts. They're super important in pregnancy because when a woman is pregnant, she needs to maintain her brain. And if you take the water out of the brain is 61% fat. But she also got to build a brain for the kid. So most women don't have enough omega-3 in the diet, so the kid takes it out of their brain. And why does the kid take it out of her brain, out of the mom's brain? It's because nature says mom's the past, kid's the future. If we have to sacrifice the past to preserve the future, we'll do that. So then what happens is each child depletes the mother more. Each child gets less than the previous child. And they've shown that if you look at all of the oldest children, they have the highest IQ, and IQ goes down with birth order. Now, that's not the only thing that happens. So I'm the youngest of 4, and I'm smarter than my brothers and sisters. Of course, they're not here to defend themselves or prove otherwise. So I can say that, right? But it's not 100%. But if you take large numbers, that trend is consistent. IQ goes down with birth order. And the researchers think that women are prone to certain degenerative conditions in a way that men are not. And they get 2 to 15 times more often than men: depression, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, collagen inflammatory, and autoimmune diseases. 2 to 15 times more. And they think it's the depletion of essential fatty acids that sets them up for these conditions. So their advice is women need to make sure they get a reliable source of both essential fatty acids. And I say made with health in mind, not damaged and not toxic and no pesticides in them, both for their own health and for the health of their children. So that's big.
Yeah.
IQ can go up by 3 to 9 points when you get your fats right. That's research on that as well. So, it goes on and on. Every part of the liver function, kidney function require essential fatty acid. Wound healing, recovery from fatigue, 40 to 60% increase in stamina in athletes who do their sport to exhaustion within 30 days of starting on a tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day. Mixed in food, spread out over the course of the day. We've done strength and endurance studies. They all improve majorly, and omega-3s are the best. We call it the fat burning fire starters, so they help with weight management, but you have to lower the carbs when you increase the oils, and then it works. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And they inhibit the over response of the symptoms in autoimmune diseases.
Yeah.
Because they dampen
the cytokine storm too, right?
Yeah, they regulate immune function nicely. Yeah. I mean, it goes on and on and on. They make bullets to kill bacteria out of essential fatty acids and then turn them into hydrogen peroxide, and they shoot the hydrogen peroxide at bacteria. This goes on and on and on. It's like, every cell needs them. Yeah. Every one of the cells needs them.
Last question, and then I want to wrap things up because I know we've already gone a little bit past the hour mark, but what about just kids? And I'm curious. I ran into a practitioner a couple of years ago, and he had this oil, he had this product, and he was talking to another doctor. He goes, "Hey, check this out." He goes, "It wasn't your oil, by the way. He was making his own, but he said this product is helping with autism with some of his clientele." And I remember looking at just some of the ingredients, and I remember Omega-9 being in there, and he might have had actually a 369 blend. I can't remember what else was in there. But I'm curious, just from what you've seen anecdotally, I know obviously you can't make any claims. We don't want the FDA or CDC to come down on us. We would hate that. But just from what you've seen, or just clients and people giving you feedback, and what have you seen for kids' health? I'm sure brain health is huge.
Yeah, we used to work with Bernie Rimland. I don't know if you know who he is. Bernie Rimland, he was in San Diego, I think, and he worked with autism. And he had two things he used that consistently got him improvement in autism. One was magnesium, and the other one was vitamin B6. And those were not cures, but they got improvements.
Yeah.
And then he started working with our oil, and he got further improvements. And again, not a quick fix, but they got improvement. And then he started doing his program. It was B6, magnesium, and oil made with Health and Mind.
Yep.
And he found that it improved. He found improvements. Now, I didn't work with those kids. That's what he told us. And he was very happy. And also, even in dealing with addiction, people found that their withdrawal symptoms were easier to manage. So, honestly, when people ask me those questions, I always get to a point where I say, look, I'm not allowed to make claims. Let me tell you how you need to think about it.
Yep.
Don't take them because they're some magic bullet for your condition. Take them because they're essential fatty acids. They're in the right ratio, and every cell in your body requires essential fatty acids, undamaged, in the right ratio. Yep. That's why you should take the oil.
100%.
And who should take it? The
Everybody.
99% of the population that doesn't get enough omega-3s.
Yeah.
So pretty much, there are some people who just make them part of the program. This is just like the foundational program.
Yeah.
Right? You need the minerals, 18 minerals, 13 vitamins, 9 essential amino acids, and 2 essential fatty acids. There's your essential nutritional foundation for a healthy body.
Yep.
They're just part of that.
Yep. Love that.
Now, Udo, we haven't talked about human nature and total health based in nature and human nature. We need to do that next time.
I'd love to bring you back on and chat about that. I think there's a lot to be said there. So Udo, let everybody know where they can connect with you, either on social media, where they can find you, or just where they can go learn more about you, your oils, and everything that you're up to.
Yeah. I also work with enzymes and probiotics. If they're looking for that, the products are on udoschoice.com. And I have a website, udoerasmus.com, and I talk about all the other stuff. The products are there as well. And I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. If you look Udo Erasmus up on Google, I will be on the first page because my name is so weird that there aren't many like me. And I'm on LinkedIn, and I have a YouTube channel. I'm not hard to. Anyway, we'll talk about the other stuff. I'm going off to Toronto to talk to the CanFit Pro. I'm giving 3 talks there in beginning of August. So I'm still batting away to try to work with the fitness professionals.
Yeah,
because they have a chance to talk to a lot of people. and they get good results. The fitness professionals say to me, you make us look good, because everybody we give the oil to, they do better in their workouts. They have more energy. Nice. It takes them longer to get tired. They recover quicker. They heal quicker. They have less pain. They have more flexibility in their joint. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And I didn't know any of that. You know, I just thought oils needed to be made with health in mind, because they're sensitive, and that must be an improvement to not damage them.
Yeah. Amazing. So, Udo Erasmus, appreciate you, brother. Thanks for being on the show.
All right, Joel. Thank you. Appreciate it.